Hey, good morning, guys. So today I'm going to do some maintenance on all of my string of plants, starting with this beautiful string of turtles. So I've had this plant for about 3 years, and then in the spring I put these outside in the shade, and this one had grown beautiful long tendrils, and then we got a crazy windstorm, and it fell to the ground and shattered into little pieces. And then I potted all the little bits and bobs up, so now I've got two beautiful string of turtles. So my goal today is to pot these together into a hanging basket, and then that way I can free up some space on my grow shelf and then also just have one big pot of turtles, which I'm excited about. Let me just move these cuties. And then I did order these cute little pots off of Amazon, these tiny little hanging baskets. And I think there were 8 in the box, and they come with the accompanying hangers. I think it was under $20. And then what I love is that these are only 4 inches deep and 7 wide. So it's a nice small soil reservoir, which will allow the soil to dry out pretty quickly. And that's what the string ofs love. So let me mix up a batch of well-draining soil and then pot these up quickly. So usually I would use a pre-bagged succulent soil like the one from Miracle Grow or Espoma, but my soils are frozen in the garage right now. You can see we've got quite a bit of snow. It's actually snowing right now, but I don't think it'll pick up on the camera. So I have an open bag of Fox Farm soil. It's at room temperature. And then I'm just going to add some orchid bark and some bonsai pumice. So this Fox Farm soil is very well draining on its own. You can see there's a lot of perlite and bits in it. Very premium soil. It's probably why it's so expensive. Just added some perlite as well. So a problem that I've been dealing with on my string of turtles is a mealybug infestation. The way I try and deal with that is once a week, without fail, I take a bit of isopropyl alcohol. I use the 70% and I decant some into the lid. I've got a paintbrush. I've also filled a little spray bottle with alcohol. And then what I do is just dunk it into my paintbrush, and anything white I see, of course I'm not seeing anything right now, but if I see any white, I just dot it and it melts the mealybugs away immediately. I also like to flip the plant so I can see the underside. And the mealybugs love to hide close to the soil and in the thick here where your eye can't really see. So this is where I use the spray bottle and I just spray quite liberally into the middle. I just go all the way around. So I'm going to place an old tea towel down so that it's got a soft place to land. And then I'm going to try and get this thing to pop out. Well, that was easy. I'm going to go around and make sure that it's tucked in really well. It's a bit of a fiddly job. Let me just move these little tendrils. Okay, now I want to get the other one in on this side. Let me first do a quick mealybug check. Now these are going to overlap each other, and that's totally fine. They will find their way. So now I'm just going to untangle them a little bit until they look fairly decent, but they will over time find their way and look beautiful. Let me actually fill some in here. Oh yeah, I need to put some in there. So something else I should have done, and I am still going to do, is maybe add some systemic just to help slow down those mealybugs. So the plant will absorb the systemic, and it's supposed to render the plant poisonous, and then the mealybugs are supposed to die, but clearly they don't, because I did do this when I brought them in October. I put some systemic on their soil, but even though it doesn't eradicate them, it certainly does slow them down. Okay, I think that's cute. Let me move all this dirt away. So next I'm going to be working on my string of watermelon. I've had this plant for quite a few years. It's very slow growing, but I have managed to propagate it into a nice big hanging basket. So now I'm just waiting for it to put on some length and some color, because I propagated this little pot last year, and look how beautiful the color is on this one. It's got a nice deep purple color, and you can see the lines on the watermelon so clearly. It's really beautiful. And then the mother plant has got just a bright green color, and you can barely see the stripes. Now I think it's because this plant is under a 5,000 lumen and this one's under a 7,000 lumen shop light. I think that's what the difference is. But what I want to do is, I've got a little gap at the top here in my hanging basket. So I'm going to scoop some of the soil out, and then I'm going to try and squeeze this baby into that gap. So I've tucked the little cutting in with some fresh soil and made sure it's nice and firmed in. And then now I'm just going to spot water the part that I added. So in terms of care, I like to plant my string ofs into very well draining soil. I usually buy the pre-bagged succulent soil from the store, and then I'll just add some perlite or pumice, whatever I have on hand, just to make it more well draining. And then the string of watermelons, I usually do the squeeze test on it. You can feel when they're thirsty, they get rather soft. And you can even see on this one, the green one's well hydrated and the little window is firm and smooth. And when you squeeze it, it's hard. Whereas this purple one, it's kind of folded over onto itself, looks more like a coffee bean. And if you feel it, it's very squishy. At that point, I'll pour water over the top, let it drain out, and then I'll pour water over it again, just to make sure that all the roots get a drink. And with a pot this size, it usually doesn't need water again for about 3 weeks indoors. Now, if I had the plant outside, I would water it probably every other day because of the heat and the wind dries it out quicker. Fertilizer, I like to use either the Aspomus succulent fertilizer or Proven Winners water soluble. Now, when the plant's indoors, I usually fertilize every 2 months at half strength. And when the plant is outside, I usually once a week, when I fertilize my annuals, I'll just pour whatever I'm feeding my annuals with over the string of plants. Propagating string of watermelons, the best method I've found is to just lay them on top of moist sphagnum moss. So I'll just take a piece, this one's a bit long, I'm just going to snap it in half and then just lay them on top of the moss. Then I like to cover mine with sphagnum moss. I just throw some on top and then firm it down a bit. And then I'll cover it with a lid. I do have a little hole in the top of the lid. And then I just put it under lights and completely forget about it. It takes sometimes up to a month before you start seeing little roots. Today is the 12th of January. I'm just going to mark that on the lid with a Sharpie. Okay, so next I've got this cute little string of dolphins. Now I've only had this plant for about a year and it's put on quite a lot of length, but I want to bulk it up. So I recently took some tip cuttings and rooted them in water. Let me just dump this little guy out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to repot this into one of my white hanging baskets. So I've placed the pot that I just took it out of in the center. And then I'm just filling some well draining soil around it. And then I'm going to remove that pot and then sink the little root ball down into the center. So next I'm going to take the cuttings that I rooted in water. The roots are a bit green because I was a bit lazy at changing out the water. And I'm just going to dibble a hole and then gently place the cuttings in. I'm going to do about 5 cuttings on this side and also just the opposite side so that the basket fills in nicely. So now I'm going to give it a good drink and also just rinse all the little strands off so that they're nice and clean and free of dust. And then I'm just going to set it aside to dry before I hang it up. So I did snap a few branches off while I was potting it up, and I'm just removing some dolphins on the ends and then just putting them in water so they can root in. Next, I've got this beautiful string of pearls that's grown way too long and I need to transfer it over into a hanging basket. So I was trying to measure, it looks like it's 8 across and 4.5 deep. So I found this pot with the same measurements. So I'm basically going to lift this plant out and set it into this planter. Now I am going to remove these cords that this hanging pot came with. I do love the look of this cord, but when you hang it up, the cords shift because they've got this strange knot at the top, and then it's really difficult to manipulate the knot so that the hanging basket hangs straight. And also, if these little knots come in contact with water or soil, it wicks the dirty water up and it looks really gross. So I'm going to snip these cords off and I'll replace them with these black hanging chains that I use on all my hanging baskets. So here I'm just using an air blower and a soft paintbrush just to get rid of all the debris on the top of the pot. So I was going to hang the string of pearls in this window. In the summer, it's a really bright spot, but you can see the sun's out today. It's about 2 in the afternoon and it's pretty shady. And then I've got this big string of pearls hanging here. It's under a grow light. It's in the corner of my kitchen. It's very happy. But then I decided to hang it in my living room. Let me show you. So instead I've hung it in my living room window. I've got another string of pearls that lives here. You can see the sun coming in on the top and then all the little tendrils hang in the sun. And I do rotate this plant every week. So I'll do the same with this little guy. It's so cute. So next I've got a string of needles. Let me show you the mother plant. So my string of needles has become a matted mess. You can see it's like all grown together. It's like a solid mat. So I did do a bunch of cuttings in this pot and they've all rooted in because I can see the fresh growth. And then I've also taken a few water props. You can see all the roots. So once these start growing and it starts looking nice, I'm just going to toss the main plant in the trash. I've got this beautiful string of marbles. It's just a variegated string of pearls. This plant I've only had for about 2 years, but it's beautiful and lush on the top. And then when I brought it in to overwinter it, it dropped a lot of the pearls on the long stems. It still looks fine, but it looks a bit sparse and scraggly. But as soon as I put this guy outside in the spring, it's going to recover and be beautiful. It's actually put on quite a lot of length. So it just needs to fill back in. Then I did propagate the string of marbles. I've got this baby in a cute little terracotta pot. And it's doing so well. All the tips are growing so beautifully. It's got lovely color. And it's nice and full. Look how cute it is. So I want to put this guy in a hanging basket, but I don't want to bore you with another potting up video of string of pearls. So that's what I'm going to do off camera. So next I've got my 2 string of hearts. I used to have one hanging in my kitchen, one in my living room. And then because of poor lighting, they got bald on the top and they look terrible. So on the 25th of July, I chopped them to pieces and restarted them. In fact, let me put in a clip to show you what they looked like and how I rejuvenated them. Next, I want to take down the string of hearts. It's in the corner of my kitchen. If I step back, you can see how poor the lighting is. I've got the 2 windows on the sides, but there's nothing from the top. So I did go ahead and buy a grow light. I've got it in the corner there. If I get up on the chair, you can see how bald it is. And there's a lot of dead, a lot of yellowing. So I'm going to take it down. I'm going to chop it off completely. Fresh soil, well draining soil, and I'm going to start over with this plant. And I've got another one, let me show you. The one hanging in my living room is also very sad. Also bald on the top. Just not a healthy plant. I'm choosing strands that have got the variegated leaves on them. So this is what the cutting looks like. It's just a pair of leaves. And then I'm going to be pushing this little leaf node right there into the soil, at least that it just makes contact with the soil. I'm just going to open it up and then place it on the soil. And then gently push down with this kebab stick just to make sure that there's contact. So I just figured out a better way to do it. If you have your cutting and you leave this piece of stem, then you can place this on the soil and then use the back end of the flat end of your kebab skewer, and you can push down and it pulls the little cutting right into place. So I put my cuttings under grow lights in my basement. I've got these under a humidity dome, and then I took a large see-through trash bag and put all the cuttings and the tuber plantings in there. So I'm going to take these upstairs, put their chains on and hang them. And let me show you the little cups. This is what they look like now. Beautiful, nice and full on the top, trailing beautifully. And they've all got a lovely pink color. I do need to water these. They're actually bone dry. I find these do like to dry out though. All the string offs, same thing. I love the variegation on these. They're absolutely beautiful. Look at them. Okay, let me take these up. So I purchased this pulley system off of Amazon. Now granted, it doesn't look very good, but it's quite useful actually. So you can lower your plant to wherever you need to have it. Then you can water and prune, whatever you want to do. And then you just lift it back to where you want to have it. Now you can also do this from the ground. Let me move my ladder. So you just hold onto your pot and then pull down, do your thing, and then, whoops, lift it back up to wherever you want it. Now, ideally, I would love to have this plant about there, but now it's shaded, which is no good. So in the meantime, until I put a grow light there, I can just lower the pot and let it get some sun for the day and then just raise it back up. The other one I've hung up in my kitchen corner, I did take the pearls downstairs. Now it's beautiful and full on the top, but I do want the sides to fill in a bit more. So I've decided to give this guy a bowl cut. So I've taken a clean scissor and then I've just snipped right around. And wherever I've made a cut, the node above will send out a double strand. So that'll help this plant fill in. And then I'm also only going to water this plant when the soil is completely dried out, and then I'll just fertilize it once a month. Okay, so lastly I want to propagate my string of bananas. I've got these cute little 3-ounce cups and I just cut a piece of the edge at the bottom off, like so, for drainage. So I'm just using the same soil as previously. This is that Fox Farm soil with the pumice and orchid bark. I'm going to use some of these greening pins. So what I do is I look for a root node on one of the vines, and then I just pop the little bananas off around it. Excuse me. Like so. And then I'll take the cup and then place the little root on the soil. Let me just do it that way. And then I'll place the greening pin over it like so, and then just push down quite firmly. You want to push it in as deep as it'll go, and then I'll just cover that over in soil. And then I want to do about 3 per cup. Let me just zoom back out. And then I am going to add a bit of soil to the top and then squish it in really well. And then I'm just going to let it hang on the mother plants. I might actually do a 4th one in here because it doesn't look very full. There we go. Now, what's nice about these see-through cups, you can see all the greening pins, but you can monitor the root growth and also how dry the cup is. So you want it to dry down completely. Now, I'm not going to water these until I see some roots coming out. Here's a clip of last year's string of bananas propagations. I had done them in exactly the same way as I just showed you. And you can see by May, they've already stalled out quite a bit. And then I decided to use them as trailers in my front concrete pots. You can see, here's a top view. I think I dotted 5 or 6 around the edge, along with some Fiesta caladiums. So here in May, they're pretty small. And then by July, they had put on a tremendous amount of growth. You can see here the caladiums had filled in, and then the bananas had grown long enough that they were just about touching the ground already. And then, of course, by the time fall came around, I had removed big chunks of string of bananas. And in our area, they do love the full sun, as long as you're watering them daily. And then I do fertilize them once a week with the Proven Winners water-soluble fertilizer. So I thought I would just show you how much growth they can put on in one season. Okay, so I've propagated 10 little cups. They're all hanging here on the mama. And then I will do a follow-up video showing you how they root in, how I water them, and then also when I detach them from the mom.